Hi there. This video is just to quickly go over the MH vinyl cutter speed and pressure and how you make sure your settings are correct in it. I don't actually have a vinyl cutter with me today. This is in response to a question on another video of mine. But Holly, I hope this helps you. So understanding the MH vinyl cutter starts with your blade holder. So the first thing you want to do is, just like a pen here, what needs to happen is your blade needs to be out far enough that there's a little bit of a space between the what you're cutting and what you're essentially a little bit of space between what you're cutting and just enough space to cut through the first layer of whatever it is you're cutting. So the thicker your material, sometimes, if you have a vinyl cutter for a very long time, the weaker the blade holder, it all factors in essentially. So what you'll typically want to do to make sure that you set that speed and pressure correctly is you basically start out at really low settings. So, maybe 10 or 20, whatever you want to put it at, but start at really low setting and you run the test button on your MH vinyl cutter. But before you do that, and so you do that, you up the pressure up if you know everything's good. But before you do that, you need to actually make sure that you set the blade in the blade holder correctly. And what you're looking for there is you're essentially you grab your blade holder, you put your blade in, and you make sure that just enough blade is showing. So you get to, typically at the top of it, there's that little setting that lets you kind of turn it back and forth and determine how far you need that blade to be sticking out. But really what you're looking for is you do a blade test. And so you grab like a stack of paper, essentially like this, where you hold the blade straight down, you press down as hard as you can, and you see how many, well, not as hard as you can, but you press down until the bottom of the blade holder is flush with the paper so that you're actually, embedded into the paper. But what you're doing is you do a little cut, just like you would with a pen or something like that, and you see how many pages it goes through. That's a good test. It's even better if you could do it on vinyl to make sure that it's accurate, but essentially you're acting like your hand is the blade holder. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that no more blade is sticking out than what needs to go through the paper. So what I recommend, a lot of people will tell you just to do that, and to do those cuts and whatnot, and they'll tell you to optimize it just to that amount of material. I don't think that's actually a good move, and the only reason why I say that is because then what happens is if you set your pressure correctly on your vinyl cutter, what'll happen is you'll then have your blade holder. So pretend this is the blade holder. It'll be rubbing against your material, and what happens with that is that that's when you start to get vinyl cut on those really intricate, or vinyl caught on those really intricate turns. So basically taking a step back to it is that the pressure of the vinyl cutter. So the only thing that's happening is the thicker the material, the harder it has to press down. And inevitably, at like really thick materials, what you end up running into is essentially the thickest materials you have you'll end up rubbing up against the material just like that. So that's why you can't have like a really fast cut on a really thick material. But with every new material, you need to reset that. That's just what you have to do. You take out the blade holder, you run through the test, you test it on, like I said, you could do it with a set of paper. It's pretty safe to do that. Or you could do it with the actual material. But from there, what happens is you're able to put your blade holder back inside your vinyl cutter. And once it's inside the vinyl cutter, a lot of people, believe it or not, a lot of people make this mistake. Make sure you actually put it correctly inside the vinyl cutter. There's documentation online for that, but I've seen throughout the years, I've seen many people do it wrong. They'll put it on top or something like that, and I know that's stupid, but the other part is the speed. So the speed, whenever you're cutting something that's intricate, slow the speed down. I don't think I've ever seen a really intricate cut with a speed above 70 or 80. And I know that sucks. But the reality of it is that the faster the blade's coming around, because the blade spins, like the inside the socket, the blade spins. And so the more intricate it is, the blade is always going to, it's almost like a sailboat in the way that it goes through. And so if you're going too fast, it's gonna look messed up. That's just the truth of it. But if you start low and move high, that you're just fine. Typically, what you do is you get the blade set up correctly. You put the blade inside the blade, or sorry, put the blade holder inside the cartridge or the carrier. And then what you do is you start off with low settings, 10, 20. You run a little test cut. And what you're able to do is you're able to speed that up. You're able to up the pressure to work with your optimal settings. So for instance, if you're going to run a massive cut with, let's say you're creating stickers for a football league and you're on a time crunch and whatnot, it might be worth your time and energy to grab a piece of scrap material and get that speed just right so that you can cut through tons of those optimally. So that's what I mean by that optimization is after that, next time you get a new material, go ahead and reset the settings. The only other thing I might add to this is that another common thing that I've seen over the years is that people will take their they won't recognize when the carriage of an MH vinyl cutter is off track. And I have another video to talk about how to put the carriage back on track. But essentially, your carriage is, I'm just drawing it out real quick. This is a terrible drawing, but essentially on the MH vinyl cutter, if you're looking top down, there's the carriage. So what it holds your blade holder. It holds your blade holder over here. And what happens is the carriage will actually come off track. And what I mean by that is it's got, I believe, 2 to 4 wheels. And what you need to do is the wheels are spring loaded, but there's a track, almost like a train track. And you need to have it correctly set on that rail, or else what happens typically is you'll be cutting a really thick material, and that carriage, one wheel will pop off, not like physically pop off, but just pop out of track, and you have to shove it back up into the track. When that happens, your vinyl cutter, it's very hard to see. Like most people can't even see when the carriage is off track. But what will happen is your cuts will get all jacked up, and your pressure is going to be like you'll have to turn it crazy high to even touch the material because it's just basically angled slightly different. So I would highly recommend, a very easy way to check that is you just grab the carriage. Don't worry, it's sturdy. You grab it, give it a little bit of a shake, and see if it feels loose. If it feels loose, it's quite possible that it's off the track. And you can also look behind it, and try to see if you could find the wheels. And you'll see that it sticks up in the top first, and then there's these spring-loaded wheels in the bottom, and you can put it back on the track. So that's another thing that oftentimes causes jacked up cuts. So all in all, I hope that helps. If you need a little bit more detail, let me know. But I hope this helps other people as well. It's when it comes to the MH vinyl cutter speed and pressure, I find that a lot of people have issues with it and trying to get it just right. But if you follow those steps, you're golden. Have a good one.